how did you start this journey and how did you reach to this kind of a massive height?
I was approached by bank, I was approached by HDFC, I was approached by one of the multinationals.
How do you manage so many responsibilities of yours?
Being available, giving a helping hand when required, being available for consultation, for advice.
So how do you manage yourself and how do you manage these challenges? And can you talk about specifically one or two challenges? Everyone, really excited because today in this Think Rich show, we have another powerful personality, one of the leading CEOs of the world, one of the finest organizations, HDFC Ltd. Mr. Keki Mistry is with us. My dear friends, in this Think Rich show, you are learning a lot of things. And today in this series, you're going to learn even more. I want you to sit with your pen and paper so that you can make the notes and you can learn from the legend himself. Hi, Keki sir, how are you doing?
I'm very good. How are you?
Very excited to have you in this show, sir. And thank you so much for accepting this invitation. And, it's a privilege for us to learn from a person like you, because I've been going through I was going through your entire details. And I must say it's a very rich experience. So the first question is very simple. How did you start this journey and how did you reach to this kind of a massive height? How did you gain this kind of a height and what has really, really inspired you during the way?
All right. So I started my career in with Indian hotels, the Taj Group of Hotels, way back in 1980. I worked with them for about a year or so. And then they wanted me to go to Goa as the chief accountant. At that time, Taj had 2 hotels in Goa and they wanted someone to sort of oversee the financial activity of both hotels. And my mother I was not married at that time. And my mother was all alone at home. And I said, there's no way I want to go to Goa. And then because I didn't want to go to Goa. And I was approached at the same time by 3 or 4 different companies. So I was approached by bank, I was approached by HDFC, I was approached by one of the multinationals, which today has become a very small entity, but at that time was relatively big. So these were really the 3 bigger entities that approached me. And Citibank looked a very interesting offer because anyone who started his career in those days would always say that the 2 places you should look to work are Citibank and Hindustan Lever. In those days, Hindustan Lever was a huge fancy of people who passed out from college or business schools. But I chose HDFC because HDFC was a young organization. It was just 2.5 years old when I joined HDFC in 1981. 3 years old, you could say, 3 years old. And the base was small. We had started setting branches and it had a very interesting social aspect that helping the common man buy a house in India.
Right.
It's a dream of a person. It's the biggest dream of a person today or anywhere in the world. Why today, even in those days, was to buy a house, a place where you can stay, a place you can call your own. So, and in those days, today, getting housing loans seems very easy. You can go to any entity, any bank, and they will give you housing loans. But in those days, in the late 1970s and early 1980s, there was no formal system of anyone being able to avail of a housing loan. So HDFC was set in that kind of an environment, and we facilitated individuals to buy a house. So it had a certain appeal, a certain social appeal also to me. So I joined HDFC. Frankly, I never regretted. Our chairman at that time was a gentleman who's pretty well known to the financial world, to the capital markets, is the H.D. Parekh. I cannot imagine an individual who could be as simple, as humble, as good, as nice a human being as H.D. Parekh. Wonderful, excellent, fantastic human being. In all my association with him for nearly 13 years till he passed away, I think 1994, I never even once, not even for a few seconds, saw him get upset or saw him get irritated or, saw him anything other than what he was, calm, cool, and that was a kind of individual. And then I also interacted a lot with Deepak Parekh. Deepak was really the person who sort of saw something in me, and he's the one who helped me and guided me throughout my career. So these are the 2 individuals for whom I've had the highest possible regard. But that's the journey. I started off as a assistant manager in accounts, the number 2 person in accounts. And then within a year, the accountant. And then in 1993, 12 years after joining HDFC, I joined the board of HDFC. I was an executive director in HDFC. In 2000, I became the managing director. And in 2010, I became the vice chairman and chief executive officer, which is where I'm right.
My goodness. So along with HDFC Group, you are on the board of many other companies also, like Tata Consultancy Services, Torrent Power, and I think many other HDFC Group companies. So how do you manage so many responsibilities of yours? Because you might be day in and day out taking a lot of decisions for HDFC. Then you might be involved in those board meetings. So how does this entire thing work? Because, you know, people like me who are not at that level, we fail to really imagine how people like you manage your time and responsibilities both.
All right. So my primary responsibility has always been HDFC, because that is my bread and butter. That's where I work. That's where I'm full-time employed. So that has always been my primary responsibility.
Absolutely.
Personally, I've always felt that any individual, senior person in a company, any company, must be encouraged to join the board of at least one other company, because that gives him an insight, an idea of what's happening in other companies, and take that knowledge back to the company where he's working. But that apart for a moment. So I joined the board of a company, like you mentioned, Tata Consultancy Services, Torrent, but these are as independent director. These are not companies where I'm involved in taking any management decisions. If there is some need that they need, if they want to consult, they want to talk, they speak to me. But other than that, the work it really is involved in terms of looking at the board papers, making sure that compliance, regulations, governance, all of that is properly in place, and you don't have to take any decisions there. As far as the HDFC Group companies are concerned, naturally, if we are a large investor, we as an HDFC owns 50% equity in a subsidiary of ours. It is obviously necessary for to spend some time in these companies also. But they are run by a professional management team. So our role is more in terms of, being available, giving a helping hand when required, being available for consultation, for advice, as and when required.
Awesome, sir.
But the primary role is HDFC. That's it.
The other question which I want to ask, sir, there might have been a lot of challenges in this journey of yours, right? Your personal journey as a CEO of this organization, wherein you have got a lot of prestigious awards. You might have faced a lot of challenges. I'm sure sometimes the manpower challenges, sometimes the government policies. COVID was another challenge. How do you really? What is your strategy to deal with these challenges? Does they do they really upset you sometimes? How do you deal with your, because an average person, he gets disturbed with the smallest of the possible challenges. He gets, sometimes he loses his cool and all this. So how do you manage yourself, and how do you manage these challenges? And can you talk about specifically one or two challenges which you might have faced in the last so many
challenges are many. You get lots and lots of challenges all your life, and you have to find a solution around that challenge. And each challenge has to be built separately. And
absolutely, sir.
The way you will handle one challenge will be different from the way you will handle another challenge. But the underlying principle that must always be there in the minds of any good manager is to look long term. Never look at short term goals. Never look at what you will achieve in the next quarter or the quarter after that. Your vision must be for the next 5 years or 10 years. And within those 5 years or 10 years, after you get your vision of what you want to do over the next 5 or 10 years, then you have to look at what you should do in the immediate present or in the immediate quarter, and so on and so forth. So very often you need to make investments with a long-term view, which may in the short term actually be detrimental to your profit. I'll give you an example of life insurance. When you invest in a life insurance company, you cannot get return. The life insurance business cannot make accounting profits for the first few years, but you need to keep investing more and more capital into that business. But in the long run, once the company turns profitable, then the profitability curve is very, very sharp and very steep, and it keeps increasing every year. So
Right.
when any decision that you are taking, any challenge that you are facing, you have to look at it from a long-term standpoint. Temporary problems will always be there, and you have to find a way of tackling those temporary problems. And each problem, I can't give you examples, there'll be
I
so
know.
many day-to-day which keep coming up, and you have to tackle them as and when they happen. But all the time, as I said, your vision must be long-term, not
Very true.
this quarter, the next quarter.
Absolutely. So in order to manage yourself, do you follow any kind of meditation, any kind of practice which you can share with us in a daily life? Like, how do you begin your day? How do you end your day? So that we can also learn from that, and we can
So,
also try to follow it.
so I used to be in my younger days. I used to be a sportsman. I used to play a lot of games. I used to play
Right.
cricket. I used to even be, I was very fond of boxing in those days. I'm talking of
Awesome.
school and college days in particular. But
Mhm.
then once you started working, then all that sort of changed. And the
Right.
amount of time you could spend on sports just completely diminished. Maybe my mistake. I should have spent more time. And when you're working literally in those days, 12 hours a day, or 13 hours or 14 hours, whatever it is per day, and not doing enough of exercise or enough of sports, your food habits change. You sort of uh, tend to put on weight and so on and so forth. And then you start
Right.
having health issues and stuff like that. So somewhere in the in the early 2010 period, 2010, 11, 12, I realized that I have to start once again and spending more time on, some kind of sports or some kind of activity which would
Absolutely.
help. So I started doing the stationary cycling.
Okay.
And since 2012, 2000, latter part of 2011, early part of 2012, and more so from 2013, every single day or almost every single day, I try to do at least 60 to 75 minutes of cycling. If I'm
Okay.
in Bombay, if I'm traveling, it doesn't happen. But wherever
Right.
I'm in Bombay, I try to do between 60 and 75 minutes of cycling. And on a weekend, when you're a little more relaxed, try to take that up to 90 minutes of cycling a day.
Awesome.
So that helps me keep a little, little fit. And then after that, it is starting. You start your day with coming to office, have meetings in the office. You have your own issues in office, and then the day gets over. By the time the day gets over and you get back home, you generally, at least what I do, is spend at least 45 minutes at whatever 8:30 in the night with family. My family is a wife and daughter. The three of us spend time just generally chatting, talking, bonding. It helps in building uh, that cohesiveness that is so important in a family.
So beautiful, sir. So it is said that an average CEO reads around 50 books in a year. Do you love reading? And if yes, then which all the books can you suggest us? Maybe one or two books which are your favorite?
I'm not very fond of reading, to be honest.
Okay.
I do read a lot of journals as and when they sort of come out, but I'm not fond of reading books in any serious way. When in my younger days, there was a
Okay.
book that I used to like a lot, which is called it was called Why I Am Afraid to Tell You Who I Am. And it was a
Oh.
book written by a gentleman named Reverend John Powell. And he said in
Hmm.
his book, his starting point in the book was that I am all that I have in this world. Besides
Awesome.
myself, I have no other possession. And if I tell you who I am and you do not like me, then I have nothing else to offer. So that is the
So
reason
true.
why people do not display or do not show their true self on the first day that you sort of meet them. So that
Very
book
true.
had a very profound influence on me in those days, in my younger days. And then I was
Absolutely.
always fond of reading P.G. Woodhouse, which was a relatively light reading.
Correct. Absolutely. So you have a large team, and there might be a lot of team issues, like some people might not be performing, and every organization has those issues. Um, what do we really do in order to inspire our team so that they can really be productive all the time? How do we manage those team issues? Or I would say, what are your mantras to succeed or to build a team and make them successful?
I think it first boils down to the process you use when you hire people, when you take people on board.
Right.
And
Correct.
to us, single biggest requirement and the most important requirement that we look at in an individual is integrity.
Right.
Integrity comes from everything else. So that is
Absolutely.
paramount, number one. And along with integrity, we sort of get people who will work as a team, work as a, work in a team environment, and not individuals who want to be known for their own selves, because those kind of
Correct.
individuals will never stay on in the company. So we try and build loyalty.
Mhm.
Today, we've had one of the lowest attrition rates that you will see amongst any company in India. Our
Wow.
attrition rates are less than 3 to 4% a year. And
That's
this is in an
incredible.
industry where the financial sector per se generally sees double-digit attrition. So
Mhm.
attrition levels are low. You create a sense of loyalty in the company. And that, to my
Right.
mind, is the most important thing. Create loyalty. Create that belief that the employee has that he likes to come to work.
Mhm.
Ideally, in an ideal situation, you should have a environment where a person feels comfortable or happy on a Monday morning, and a little, if I may say so, he starts missing office on a Friday
Right.
evening. That type of environment.
Absolutely. In order to become nowadays this best place to work for survey happens in every single company. So what are the initiatives we are taking to ensure that every person becomes that loyal, like because
I
that
mean,
will help. And
at the end of the day, this will all get reflected in results, in the
very true.
results of a company, and it
Very
will
true.
also get reflected in the attrition rates that you will see. That's
Absolutely.
the best
Very true.
measure.
So, but what kind of initiative? Like, is it that HR department keeps taking certain initiatives,
There
and
are
what are the
obvious,
key initiatives? Maybe one or two, which are unique in HDFC Bank,
so there
or
are
sorry,
contests
HDFC
that
Limited.
Yeah, so there are contests that are held. Like, for example,
Right.
you have a quarter end, and there is a quarter end number to be achieved, whether it's in
Okay.
terms of collection of money, whether it's in terms of disbursement. You will have
Absolutely.
contests which reward employees who achieve certain targets or achieve certain goals.
Right. So, one or two last questions, sir.
Yeah.
Like, how do you think AI is going to play a role in the banking sector or the housing sector of India? Uh, and nowadays, even cryptocurrency and these kind of many other distractions are also coming. But I'm more. I think crypto and all is a different investment entity. But then artificial intelligence is going to be big
Yeah,
time.
artificial intelligence will help you appraise an individual better. It will
Right.
help you understand the possibility of the default coming from an individual. So every area has some benefit or the other.
Correct.
Uh, Testing or assessing an individual's capacity or ability to take a loan, how good
Right.
that individual will be in terms of paying back his loan on time,
Mhm.
installments, things that can be assisted through artificial
Absolutely.
intelligence.
So beautiful. So this interview is going to be seen by many small scale industry owners who are maybe either the startups or who just have like 1 crore, 10 crores, 20 crores, or maybe less than 100 crore kind of a turnover. Many students will also see this interview. So what is the advice which you would like to give to those small scale industry owners? How can they scale their business? What do you think, if you are their coach and they are listening to you right this moment, what would you like to share with them?
Would differ obviously from industry to industry, business to business. So I don't want to
Correct.
be very general, but just give you 2, 3 very general points. My first
Absolutely.
point would be leverage. Leverage is important because the higher you leverage, the higher will be your return on equity in the business. But at
Very
the
true.
same time, too much of leverage brings with it risks, which cannot
Mhm.
be forgotten. So
Correct.
you have to have the right parameter, the right quantum of leverage that you have in your business. And
Mhm.
so as to, on one side, optimize your return on equity, and at the same time not take undue risk. So that is one thing which has to be very closely monitored. And I can't give you a very general answer because it's going to vary from industry to industry and business to business. But it's one thing which is important. The second thing is, in businesses there will be failures. It's not that every decision that you take in life will be successful. You will have to have failures in life. So if your vision is, if you have confidence in your vision, if you have confidence in your own self, then continue pursuing what you think is right. Temporary failure will happen, but in the long term, you will meet with success. And the third suggestion, or the third advice I would have, is always think long term. I mentioned that earlier on also. Do not look at temporary short-term goals. Short-term goals will never give you long-term success. Never ever. Only long-term goals, long-term vision will give you long-term success.
Lovely, sir. So in the organizations, bigger organizations, we have leadership consultants, leadership teams, or very big leadership institutes which guide the senior management about building the strategies, building the vision of the company. But the small scale industry owner does not have those privileges. So how can we? What are the steps you think an individual or an organization should take to create a shared vision or a long-term vision?
I mean, there are various ways. I don't think you can have a shared vision as such, but there are industry bodies. So there are so many industry bodies. You join an industry body and you are a member of that industry body. You participate in all the various programs, various initiatives that that industry body is taking. You come into contact with people from a similar industry or from similar size of business, and from there you learn.
Correct.
So it's taking a more active interest in what's going on.
Very nice, sir. And the final question, sir, what are your top 3 mantras for success, apart from what you have said? Like, what do you, if you need to start all over again, what are the top 3 things would you like to really advise people or yourself?
It will frankly be a repetition, but because I've said what I needed to. Number 1, integrity. Never ever compromise integrity. That is paramount. That is that. I mean, there is no principle where you can even remotely think of sacrificing on integrity. Number 1. Number 2, long-term goals. Never look at short-term objectives. You must think. And 3, always keep risk management in place in your business, in every aspect of your business, whether it is in your revenue raising, it's in your expenditure, it's in your borrowings, it's in your whatever else. Please ensure that there is adequate risk management systems set up in place.
So beautiful, Keki sir. This is literally an incredible interview for me, and because of many reasons. Number 1, I'm talking to such a senior person from this country who is leading such a huge organization, and at the same time, these simple things, especially this thing that think always long term. This is really what resonates with me the most. I'm sure it will resonate with almost all the people. So I really want to thank you for giving this wonderful time to us, and I'm sure this is going to be giving a lot of insight to all the people, participants, because each interview, even if people take home one learning, I think it is going to shift their entire reality. Thank you so much for giving your time, sir, and look forward to sometime see you in person and learn a lot. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you so much.